Welcome to Public Space, a community dedicated to supporting individuals who have experienced religious trauma or find themselves in between and are looking for self-God as well as community. We exist beyond the four walls of colonized religion. Here, we create a safe and vibrant space where members can explore and share spirituality, stories, art, and intellectual inquiry through critical dialogue. Join us as we embark on a journey of healing, self-discovery, and creative expression. Together, we will foster a supportive community that empowers individuals to reclaim their voice, embrace their unique journeys, embody a Path-Maker archetype, and find solace and strength in the company of like-minded individuals.
All right, welcome back to another public space. It is July 2025. This month, we are centering ourselves around the theme of roots of resilience. And we did that because this full moon on July 10th is full moon in Capricorn. And what that means is this energy that we're about to get is focused on discipline, structure, ambition, perseverance, and building something that is enduring, good foundations, that can last. Um, it's associated with Saturn, the wise taskmaster, um, but it represents mastery, basically, right? And so, metaspiritually, the full moon in Capricorn invites sort of a synthesis of emotional awareness with practical responsibility. It asks us to honor our soul's deepest needs while also committed to tangible, embodied goals. It may illuminate where you have outgrown structures, roles, or ambitions that no longer serve you while affirming what is truly worth sustaining and keep, working on. Um, we'll get into that a little bit more later. We have some good examples in our own journey that can help highlight these things as well. But overall, looking at this month's full moon through a meta spiritual lens, for us path makers, for us artists, those who are journeying life beyond the main path, off path, so to speak. Um, this is a good time to take a moment, take a knee, and realign with what's your authentic purpose. Why are you out there trekking? Why are you out there stepping off the well-trodden path? This is a good time to remind ourselves why we do what we do and why we're doing what we're doing. It's a good time to let go of illusions about success and legacy, because a lot of those things we still have from the main path, from traditions, and we need to start critically thinking. It's not just so easy just to let it go, but this process of letting go is very complicated. It requires intuition, wisdom, because you can't throw out the baby in the bathwater, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like you got to throw out something, but not the whole thing. This is a good time to start integrating spiritual practice with real world impact. What we're talking about here is, are our spiritual rituals practical? Are they realistic? Are they reflecting the challenges we are confronting right now? If that makes sense. And finally, understanding that devotion itself is a form of sacred discipline. When we devote ourselves to a craft, a skill, an art, a ministry, some sort of purpose, some sort of culmination of action, value. When we devote ourselves to family, you know, um, it's very sacred. And so we should really remind ourselves of the things that we're devoted to and, really remind ourselves that those things are sacred. But this month we wanted to also add a different lens to the mix because last month off path we had the honor of doing something amazing with a group of people in New York, um, coming together to talk about film and spirituality and how do we even see God and film and art. So it was very inspiring, to say the least. But it also caused us to start reimagining this space and seeing that this space may be filled with more artists than people that claim to be path makers or whatever. So maybe it's easier for people to connect with, being an artist. And so if you are an artist and you are listening to this and you are part of this community at your own capacity, then this full moon in Capricorn is a good time to recommit to your craft with discipline and dedication, even when inspiration starts to get low or starts to wane off. When depression starts to sit in, or negative thoughts start to sit in, and doubt starts to sit in. Reflect on your legacy. What are you leaving behind? What do you wish to build or leave behind through your art? This is a good time to start thinking about that, as well as release any fears about recognition or external approval that might block your authentic creation. And so, for any artist, they would intuitively understand this. It becomes very challenging when we let other people's opinions start entering into our space of creativity. And when we start to try to create something, all we could think about is other people's thoughts. We end up finding that the pattern leads us to not create anything, or we create something that's not authentic. And then when we create things that are not authentic, we're creating things that have no value. Does that make sense? And we all know, if we've ever created something that has no value and has no real connection or mirroring of our authentic self in it, we don't have a deep connection to it. And therefore, we're faking. And to fake being an artist is painful. It leads to perhaps moments of drug abuse and escapism. People feel, some artists feel like they've lost touch with that spark, that inspirational spark that they may have had before. This is all explainable or can be seen on a meta spiritual dimension, and so that is why we're bringing this into this space, because there may be artists out there, in the world, no matter where you are, and you feel like, you're having blockage, or you're feeling like you can't create, or you feel confused as to why you're pursuing to be an artist or do art in your own way. This month is a good time to start thinking about who you are and remember why you do what you do. You know what I mean? Examine how you might structure your creative life or your art, to support long term growth and freedom. You know, let's not create art to make a dollar. Let's create art because that's what we breathe, if that makes sense. And we need to breathe, we need to exist. And so, with that said, let's open it up. All right. This past month, uh, traveling off path, what have you learned? What have you been struggling with? Um, and what are your thoughts on this upcoming Capricorn full moon?
As we move into a new lunar cycle, let's carry forward the spirit of curiosity, compassion, and courage that defines this sacred gathering. May we continue to honor our unique paths while weaving them together in solidarity and wonder. Let's keep creating, questioning, healing, and dreaming, because we are the ones shaping what it means to live beyond the four walls. Thank you for being part of this unfolding journey. Stay connected, stay open, and above all, stay true to the beautiful pathmaker you are.
For me, this past month traveling off path, we actually got to travel to New York for a short bit of time. And we were able to not only cross paths, but break bread with some amazing individuals from different walks of life. And I'm talking people from Buddhist faith and, you know, um, people from South Korea, North Korea, people from China, people from Germany, Switzerland, and also New York natives. It was awesome. And bringing these individuals together to talk about film and spirituality, also through empathy, like how do we use film or how do we empathize with others through film? That was really eye opening for me. And it got me to start thinking some different things, what does my off path journey start to look like? How does it start to unfold? Um, why are we out here? You know what I'm saying? Like that is the echoing question this past month for me was why are we off path? Is it because we just want to be rebellious? Is it because we want to be different? Is it because we want attention? Is it because we want to help people? Is it because we want to find ourselves or a different part of ourselves that we never saw or met? These are the kind of questions that have been echoing in my spirit while being off path this past month. And so we entered this space. We haven't really answered these questions, but we enter into this space still pondering and wondering why did we experience what we experienced? And what does it mean to us? And what does it mean for our art and our breathing? How do we breathe different now that we've experienced what we've experienced? And because we're breathing different, how will we move forward? It got me to think back to when we used to climb a little back in the day. And when you get to certain elevations and altitudes, the air gets thinner. And so you breathe different because you're at a different altitude, different elevation, you know? And for me, it always seemed easier to breathe at the base of a mountain versus at the middle or top, you know? It's almost painful, but yet rewarding because at the same time, you've achieved something that very few have achieved. You've gone to lengths and heights that very few go to. And that is the gift. But at the same time, the sacrifice is you have to breathe different in order to survive or to be at that altitude, you know? So that's always something that really stuck with me, no matter whether it's elevation or horizontal distance, like how are you breathing? And that got me thinking maybe that should be a constant, continuous question we ask ourselves in this community. How are we breathing right now? You know, there's a lot of things going on in the world, all around the world, and it's causing all of us to breathe different, not just literally, but spiritually. You know, please.
As you were sharing this and about, being able to breathe, so basically just grounding yourself in a way, that reminded me of how do we not lose ourselves, like to not become insane or something like that. How to become stable amongst the chaos that we see outside of us, which is difficult, very difficult to do. Or to be able to, like you were also sharing, um, being able to hold on to those new experiences that maybe before in our lives we did not even had that opportunity or the chance maybe to meet new people that may be genuinely like-minded, like really sharing certain things that we ourselves follow, understand, um, is very difficult, to be able to step into those things and then not lose yourselves. Um, and I think for me, it's like almost this roller coaster where I can see the flip side of things, but then there's like this constant battle of what I can't control, which is what's happening out there. There's different forces that I myself cannot, you know, intervene or try to, I don't know, like dismantle. It just takes a lot more than just words, more than just one person. It really requires the whole collective, even those that don't agree with empathizing with someone else. Um, it's been very challenging, especially during this season. I have noticed that within myself, I've been revisiting or just having more of like this patience to look at things that I at the time thought maybe I didn't need to kind of refresh in my mind or to try to sharpen my skills a bit. Because sometimes, even as artists, we can think, oh, yeah, I can just create and that's it. Like I don't need like some pointers, but down the line, we tend to have those sort of guides in a way, even without us realizing it or that it's there. But mm, there are like these bumpers on the sides that are there. And so looking into these things, I kind of feel more comfortable, a little more open to play around, and not really think about time. And then I also for myself, I think because I wanted to have like some kind of clock, like a big clock in my art room or even in my office. And then I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I do have a watch or there's the laptop, the time is there, but why do I need to keep track of the time like that? Like it kind of then it's like a distraction of me trying to rush this process because I think at the same time it has been healing too. So maybe those things that have echoed in my past and has been repeating itself, like a trigger, um, where the ego is like, oh yeah, like we're not doing this right now. Like having or just putting those ideas to the side, which technically aren't mine. I know we've spoken or have touched base on this before in public space, but things that we have taken on um, as something that we might carry in our identity, but it's really someone else's fears. And so we feed it into our ego. And then the minute that we are growing or stepping into that, then that voice comes in and tries to really just take down whatever it is you were trying to build. Um, and that's very difficult. So yeah, like I've been just making sure that I know these things are there and when is a good time to just step away and maybe reflect and even ask questions as to why this is coming up for me. Why is this so triggering? Why is it that the minute that I am trying to like get into something that's new, it's the fear, it's scary. So I think that's what it is when we feel sort of like that, almost like that fight or flight comes in, and then our immediate response is to just walk away from it. Like I think that right there is like something that needs to be worked on a lot more. And I say this for myself, obviously, but that is a constant struggle as an artist and as a person in general that's healing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You as you were talking, you made me think of this past experience in New York. We got to come together and meet for this film festival and as well the colloquium at Judson Memorial Church. And we were thinking of how Micah, who is the senior leader of Judson, he said that he sees artists as prophets, and
Mm,
that's something that like really stuck with me, still echoing in my body and my mind and my spirit. That our artwork is more than just colors and creative illusions. You know, our artwork is sacred, and our expressions are sacred, you know. So this really got me to rekindle my theopoetic fire, and really see more that theopoetry for me is sacred, and my theopoetry to me is sacred, comes from a sacred place. Um, and so as a theopoet, as an artist, sharing such sacred things, you know, it was like, are we not like a prophet? You know? And then we started thinking that's so interesting because even in the Christian Bible, even the Hebrew scriptures, when they talk about, a prophet, it's usually this person that the average community, the the followers, they were just like, persuaded to believe that these people were going against God, and all the while they were delivering messages from God, and it really made me think while we were in New York, we were going around the city, taking pictures in a very meditative state. And the graffiti immediately connected me to what Micah said. Artists are prophets, and look at them. They go through some really dangerous, things just to get their artwork somewhere so people can see it. Like they didn't even get paid for that. You know what I mean? Like, just it made me remember also, like, back in when we were in high school at art and design, like those days of graffiti and, tagging and just doing art, and it's just wow, like what Micah said really like reverberated, through my essence. I felt like it, like all the way back to where I was a child. It was just like I remember as a child, putting like stuffed animals together, and I had this children's Bible, and I'm just sitting there like in the position of the pastor or preacher, and I'm speaking to these stuffed animals who in my imagination are my
mm,
congregants, as a child, obviously mimicking what we saw growing up in church, but as a child reinterpreting the ritual, like the physical movements, like we adopted that, but in our own meaning, so like it just meant something else. It took on a whole new meaning, but it looked like something completely different, like, and it just blew my mind, that we as artists all around the world, we've been doing these things, whether accepted by status quo or not. whether criminalized or not, whether, purposely bullied to so that people don't see your art or whatever, whatever the circumstance, it happens in some form or fashion to us around the world because, the majority are following, the less than 1%. And the less than 1% are dictating the trends. And so the real artists are like, I don't know, like less than 5%. You know what I'm saying? So like we're just out here doing our own thing and we're being labeled as, you know, um, odds or people that should not be doing that or something. Like we're being criminalized and we're being told we're wrong. And this even goes back to breathing. Like, how can you sit here and tell these people, these artists, that they're breathing wrong? Like, how can you tell anyone they're breathing wrong? If they're breathing, it works for them. Isn't that good enough? You know?
Hmm. That saying, which I've heard it before, just people around, because everyone has opinions. Everyone has their own opinion, where it's like, oh, that's not art. And then it's like, well, everything is art. If everything around us is creation, like that to me is an interpretation that art is everything. Like anything can be art. It's an expression of that creator, that artist. And so I understand why it is something that is sacred for many of us artists. Some of us will not create in front of an audience. They'll rather just be in their own space, like create their own world. And then it's in there that they are able to like shine and just create. Whereas other people, and I'm not saying that it's a right or wrong thing, whichever any way you go, uh, they're okay with just doing it out in the open. Like there's nothing wrong with how you're expressing, or um, if you're shying away, whatever that looks like. Like there is no right or wrong way to do it, and they're both sacred. But it's just so interesting. Like lately, I've been like recently. I don't want to assume it was NPR, but I think it was NPR, and if not, I am sorry. But if anyone else saw that, but it was like a post, and they did this thing where they asked if would you rather see artwork in a museum or see the artist's, artwork displayed in public, like in the streets. And it's interesting because we have been seeing like certain like art pieces, works, it could be sculptures, whatever it is, out, you know, everyday life. And to me, and I know that's something that we can see more in cities, or like in New York City, for example. That people can really appreciate the art just when they're maybe on a lunch break, or maybe they've had a lot of things in their mind, and for some reason they just bump into this on their way home. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to check in or buy a ticket, whatever it is, to go to an art museum. Sometimes we can overthink how we approach these spaces, um, which I think is, to me, that's an honor to even have your artwork outside like that. I don't know if that makes sense. So even like what you were mentioning, like graffiti, there's also the murals that we see outside. Um, and I'm pretty sure that sometimes we have like permission to kind of do those things, or just paint in someone's property, or they asked to have some kind of artwork and display. but it just brings so much life, to certain places where, like I said earlier, like anything is art, anything can be art. Like there's beauty even in the things that may look so negative, so ugly, but there's expression there, whether it's through anger, whether it's through happiness, like there's passion in there. Um, I don't know. It's just so fascinating, just the world of art, design. There's just so much symmetry, so much in alignment with ourselves in our chaos. Like there is no right or wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think that's a good segue to wrap up and close out. Keep it short today. Um, it's a beautiful day. Want to get back in nature, um, and really try to take in this beautiful sun. And just like this moon, this full moon, is hinting at for us to ground ourselves. So again, look forward to this Capricorn full moon, July 10th, and for all you artists, path makers, continue to see your gifts as a sacred responsibility, you know, and those things are worthy of structure and perseverance, as well as, celebrate the beauty, of art and what you're doing yourself, you know, this hard earned mastery, so to speak. You guys have been working so hard to become who you are right now. You who have worked so hard to master your craft, you know, embrace that, pat yourself on the back. Be good to yourself this month, forgive yourself. Don't critically judge yourself too harshly, it's art, like Jasenia was saying, like everything's art, don't take it so serious, but relax. Like it's what we do. And all we got to do is breathe. Exactly. Just breathe. And it'll all fall into place. Seriously. Because we are the ones doing it. So as long as we're breathing, we can do it, you know? So on that note, see you next month and continue to breathe, ground yourself, and continue doing art. You got anything you want to say, Jasenia, before we close?
Yeah. To piggyback on continue to create art, continue to express yourself without fear, but do it with the intention that it's not with anger. And if you are transforming that anger or the pain, just make sure that you're understanding like what caused those emotions in the first place. Because I feel like as artists, we can um, create through pain, but it's in that creation, like there's this form of transformation that creates either a masterpiece or just in your own healing, you're able to heal something, a part of you, by processing that, and just creating maybe a different outcome with what you were presented with in the first place. So just you have a gift, just like we all do. We all have gifts, right? We all create, we all express in different ways. Um, but yeah, it just again to what Aaron was saying, just keep breathing.
Spoken like a true Jedi master. All right. See you guys next month.